Thank you, Sumit. Good afternoon to everyone joining us today. I'm pleased to welcome you to the virtual press meet of Confluence Ideathon 2021 into Serendipity Arts Foundation, an initiative by Hero Enterprise and powered by Indian Angel Network and TIE Delhi NCR. The Confluence Ideathon emerged from a belief that the cultural center of the future must be imagined and realized collectively through a diversity of minds and approaches. The Ideathon is an arts hackathon that asks what would it take to create a museum and cultural center which will bring together performing, visual, culinary, film, and literary practices in the arts while addressing concerns of sustainability, efficiency, access, and ecology. The focus is on finding answers to questions that will impact generations to come. Structured as an arena for innovation, the Ideathon invites participation from students and practitioners across the world, whose ideas receive mentorship, guidance, and growth through an esteemed panel of mentors and juries comprising industry and academic experts, leaders, and innovators. Through the course of the press meet, we'll be introducing you to the minds that will nurture the participants of CI 2021. It is my pleasure to first introduce Ms. Smriti Rajgarhia, Director of Serendipity Arts Foundation and the Serendipity Arts Festival, the knowledge partner for CI 2021. Currently, Ms. Rajgarhia is leading the foundation and working on the Serendipity Arts Festival to bring her passion for art and design to the forefront and for building unique opportunities for creative individuals. With these two platforms, she endeavors to explore newer forms of representation and recontextualize the kind of programming institutions need to engage with to widen the demographic of the audience for the arts in India. Over to you, Smriti.
Thank you very much, Arushi, for that very kind introduction. I would like to thank everyone here for making the time to celebrate the launch of Confluence Ideathon. A short brief about Serendipity Arts Foundation. It started in 2015, and in the past 5 years has managed to engage newer audiences, reassert the value of the arts, and create wider patronage to harness culture as the soft power of the region. Extending our mandate that art is for celebration and inspires innovation, Serendipity Arts Foundation is proud to be a part of Confluence Ideathon that harnesses the power of creativity and innovation to make arts more accessible. Through the ages, arts have thrived on patronage. It has been no different for us, where our journey from research to residencies, international collaborations, seminars to grants and festivals, offline and online, wouldn't have been possible without the support and experience of all our patrons who have been instrumental to where we are today as we continue our journey to establish a global institution for interdisciplinary conversations. It is a proud moment for me to introduce Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, founder patron, Serendipity Arts Foundation, and a visionary whose efforts in various philanthropic initiatives are a case study in themselves. It is because of his passion and vision that we are here today. I would like to request Mr. Munjal to say a few words about Confluence Ideathon, innovation, and how arts need to create access and become accessible for progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Smriti. First, a big thank you to all those who have supported the idea of the Serendipity Arts Foundation, which has attempted over the last 5 or 7 years to increase the reach of the arts, to improve patronage in the arts, and to demonstrate that arts are for everyone, and therefore access is important. The need to support the arts, I think, is pretty obvious because we have inherited a cultural heritage which is probably the richest in the world. And over the last few decades, we have seen a lot of it decline and decay. I think it is certainly a responsibility of all of us who have the wherewithal, the resources, the reach to make an effort to both increase exposure to the arts and to offer the support that the arts and the artists desire and need for them to be both successful and to grow the arts, including looking at the contemporized form of arts as they are today in the world. So the attempt at Serendipity has been to connect the ancient and the modern the old and the new, and to look at experimentation and how arts, which are all around us all the time, can become an inherent part of each one of us to both help strengthen ourselves. And in this year, particularly, when we saw the COVID-19 pandemic wreak havoc across the globe, and many people reached inwards, some to meditation, some to yoga, some to other classes, and many reached out to the arts because it truly speaks to the soul. It makes us in many ways more whole and complete. So I want to thank each and every one of you, especially the patrons and the supporters we have here today, who have got together on this journey for Serendipity Arts Foundation to set up what we are currently calling a live museum, which is a permanent establishment for encouraging the arts and the viewership of the arts in many different forms and aspects. In fact, in all its different forms and aspects, as Arushi explained at the beginning. And this is an initiative which recognizes that no one of us has all the good ideas at any given time. So the idea was to bring in as many people as possible into this mission, into this journey, and to collate all good ideas that can come together and figure out how do you create a center which is most accessible, most open, most effective, most environment friendly, most energy efficient. So it's not only speaking to the arts, but it's speaking truly to each one of us and our responsibility to each other and to the planet. Thank our team, which has put this together, because we have reached far and wide. The Confluence Ideathon has reached out to institutions, universities, schools, colleges, individuals, and companies across the globe to see how we can get many, many more people than we have within our own circle involved in this initiative to gather as many ideas as possible and see how practically these can be made a part of the live museum as it gets designed, as it gets implemented, and as it rolls out its programs, which we hope will be as universal as they possibly can, building a center which is in its soul and heart Indian, but a global center, a center which also provides a bridge between India and the world, Indians and the world, the arts of this region, the South Asian region, and the rest of the world, and also encourages experimentation, research, education, residencies, and performances of all kinds of arts, both visual, performance, as also culinary arts. So it needs to be as experiential as possible, which is also why the need to engage with and involve as many people as we possibly can. We have a short film which will give you a little bit of an idea as to what this is all about. Can we cue the film, please?
Mr. Munjal, for your pursuit of fostering excellence and innovation in the arts. After that enthralling film, I'm pleased to be introducing Mr. Brian Carvalho, who will be moderating today's discussion. Mr. Carvalho is Editor-in-Chief, Forbes India. Without further ado, over to you, Mr. Carvalho.
Thank you, Arushi. Thank you, Mr. Munjal and Smriti, for having me here. It is indeed a privilege to be part of this initiative and on this platform as a moderator in the midst of such esteemed names. Without much ado, I'll begin this discussion with a question addressed to Ms. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. Ma'am, perhaps you could throw some light on how the twain of art and science can meet, and what are the possibilities you see for collaboration between the ambassadors of art and those of science?
Thank you, Brian, for that very important question. And I would like to start by saying that I have always been very inspired with what Sunil Munjal has conceptualized in terms of the Serendipity Arts Foundation. And I was fortunate enough to at least have participated in a short while in the Serendipity Arts Festival in Goa a few years ago. And at that time, actually, my contribution was to basically get the Science Gallery Bengaluru to be a partner of this particular festival. And why did I believe this was so important? It was because, as you just heard Mr. Munjal say, the terms he used, experimentation, research, innovation, education, all these resonate across the board, whether it's arts or science. And I personally believe that a nation's culture is embedded in its visual and performing arts, but also in its sciences. That's the intellect and the intellectual potential of countries in terms of creativity. So whether it is the arts or the science, the creativity exhibited by the arts and the sciences is what really makes a country what it is in terms of its deep cultural roots. And I think in India, we have much to be proud of. Whether it's arts, whether it's sciences, we are very deeply rooted in the creativity that emanates from both these spheres. And therefore, there is a natural confluence between the arts and the sciences. And as a scientist myself, I really can tell you that when you refer to terms like the art of science, I think it really has a very real meaning, because science is not very often exact. There is an understanding. There is an art of understanding science and applying science. And in today's context, it's even more relevant, because you have to be so thoughtful when you apply science, when you conceptualize new ideas for science. And this whole concept of Confluence Ideathon is very intriguing, very inspiring, and very exciting, because I think you've got to generate ideas from all spheres. And I think the confluence of arts and science is very exciting, very experimental, and very inspiring. Because I think we can actually, through this confluence, learn from both these spheres in a way that generates more knowledge, more ideas, and more ways of making our planet even better. So let me give you an example. Let's talk about the very fact that you're talking about our rich tradition of fabrics and weaving and designing apparel and just fabrics in general. So whilst we focus on the weaving itself has a scientific basis. Weaving itself can be very creatively done to have different weaves. And of course, you have the whole technology behind weaving itself that actually lends to that. So all this is generated from a number of creative ideas. And then when you come to the fabric, you just look at the design. But in that design is the pigments that we use, the color combinations that we come to. So I think all this makes for a great confluence of great ideas. And I must say, I'm very excited with this particular Confluence Ideathon.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw, for very colorfully illustrating the art of science, as you put it. Right. Let me turn to Ms. Vanita Bali. Ms. Bali, you would know a bit about building scale and going for growth associated as you've been with prestigious companies from Britannia as managing director and now as independent director on the boards of so many companies. From your experience, how can art institutions and initiatives achieve similar scale, relevance, impact, and growth?
That's an interesting question. First of all, I think as Sunil himself said and Kiran reiterated, I think the importance of art in our everyday life is really something that, in a sense, we've got to surrender to. Because it brings us unlimited joy, it brings us an elation, an experience which is fairly indescribable from any other point of view. When it comes to scale, and I think that is where I have great admiration for what the Serendipity Arts Foundation is trying to do. One of the essential things in scale is, how do you create a larger presence without diluting excellence, without diluting quality, and ensuring that what clarity of purpose or clarity of vision, which I think the Serendipity Arts Foundation has in plenty. The very idea of creating an arts foundation which encompasses so many genres of art, including culinary art, is a great place to begin with. I think the second is you get the best of the best to ideate with you, to curate for you. And there is no doubt that, when the best minds come together in a very open space, in a very emancipated space, in a space that has no boundaries, we talk about being boundaryless and being seamless. I think this to me epitomizes what that is all about. So when you've got, very good minds, thinking minds, creative minds, innovative minds, conceptual minds coming together to address a very profound question like the one we have before us, we will get a lot of ideas on how to scale. And I think the last thing in scale is, to my mind, it is whether it's a business or whether it's an arts foundation. The time when people do their best work is when they are inspired. They don't do their best work because it's a job. They do their best work because they believe that this work in and of itself is going to be the reward, that this work in and of itself is of such immense value, not just today, but in generations to come, that, there are no boundaries, you don't hold yourself back. So I think the essential qualities of scaling are clarity of vision, clarity of purpose, assembling a team of inspired people, and then giving them the freedom with responsibility to go and create. Businesses flourish that way, and I'm sure art foundations flourish that way too.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Bali. Let me turn to the man with, as you put it, the clarity of vision, right? So, Mr. Munjal, if I may ask you, you touched upon India's soft power being unarguably the richest in the world. And it's also perhaps the most underleveraged also. So this clarity of vision we talked about, maybe you could spell it out in words about how do you see the foundation and this initiative that you propose? How is that going to take India on the global stage in terms of its soft power and unleashing that soft power on the world, much belatedly?
So first, let me say a big thank you to my friends who are on this session with us today. Both Kiran and Vanita have spoken wonderfully about the need for us to engage more with the arts. I don't think there's any argument there, but unfortunately, we still do not do enough, which is why the need for such initiatives to expand our own horizon, to expand the reach of the arts. So the way we've been doing this so far, and the way we propose to do it in the future, is to focus on excellence and scale and reach and access all at the same time. So we have had many of the top creative minds as our curators. We've had thousands and thousands of artists come in and perform or send their artworks at each time when we did the festival. And overall, we've had millions of visitors who have engaged with the festival physically. And this year, interestingly, we did everything virtually, by the way. I'm sorry. This year of 2020, we launched a series of initiatives through Serendipity, which were all virtual initiatives. And we also had millions of visitors virtually come in and engage with the arts through these initiatives, including what we call the Serendipity Arts Virtual, which replaced the festival that takes place in December every year. And earlier in the year, we also ran an initial virtual initiative where we were training and testing ourselves. So that's one thing we've encouraged, is experimentation constantly, to try and make sure that we can get better at whatever it is we are doing and do more things. So if we can get this right, the idea is, as I said, to build this as a platform which is not owned or controlled by any 1 or 2 or 10 individuals or artists or curators, but is open to many. And that is what has allowed us to get connected to some of the top institutions in the world, and also some of the top foundations and artists in the world, including intellectuals and academics. Because since we are doing research, we are working with institutions literally across the globe. We have had artists from about 30 countries, academics from about 20 countries, and partnerships in over a dozen countries now, which are allowing us to reach out to the world to say, here is an opportunity for you to engage, interface, and become one with this initiative, which is focused on South Asian arts, but not only South Asian arts. Because please remember, we're also experimenting with new forms which are getting somewhat common across the globe. So this institution that we're talking about, the Live Museum, will have a museum of all of the ancient art forms as they were in history, the theater and music and dance and crafts and painting and sculpture, but we'll also have the contemporized form of each of these being operated on the same campus. So artist studios with wooden workshops, with potter's wheels as a metal workshop, but also a cutting edge digital workshop at the same time. So if you can bring these together and you can create an open platform, I think the ability for us to show the Indian creativity and therefore our soft power is enhanced dramatically, and which is where the scale becomes the magic sauce. Because without scale, you can still do this very well, but you can only impact and influence a small number of people or institutions if your scale is not there. So the idea is to try and bring all of these into one common melting pot and see how you can get the best of each one, but of course being careful to get the best of each one, which is why I said excellence is important in the ability to choose and also the ability to execute, which is where I guess some of us start wearing a corporate hat to ensure that you're able to do these timely in the given resources and in the available and to address the audience as we see it. And the audience also constantly gives us feedback, which is a constant learning loop that we have created. So we are by no means coming from a pre-learned position. We are saying this is what we have, but this is what we are willing to learn and grow from.
Thank you, Mr. Munjal. That's beautifully put. Let me go to Padmaja Ruparel of the Indian Angel Network. Ms. Ruparel,
I also have to add one moment, Brian, give me half a minute more.
Definitely.
I also have to add the wonderful support that we got from Indian Angel Network, TIE, and the large number of institutions and universities and academics from across the globe. The moment we talked of this hackathon, which will not be a hackathon, but it will be an ideathon, to figure out how do you design a building, which has got all of the components that we talk about. How do you build it so that it functions and has a wonderful interface with the user? How do you make sure it's not only user friendly, it's also eco friendly, and demonstrates that to people whoever wants to learn from this? And how do you create an environment where artists feel safe and protected and are able to come in and perform, to come in and do research, and to come in and write their research as well? And this, I think, is a big vote of confidence in some sense, and what gives us comfort that we are on the right path, that such top class, top quality institutions have given the nod and are willing to actively support this.
Sure.
So Padmaja, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Munjal. Ms. Ruparel. Yeah, so Mr. Munjal used words like scale, accessibility, and reach. And these are words probably you have in your everyday conversations in a very different context, in the context of entrepreneurship. Right. So how would you gauge the potential for entrepreneurship within arts and culture? Right. And actually make it accessible to a wider audience?
Thank you, Brian. And first of all, congratulations on the launch of this Confluence. I think it's been real hard work from the entire team. So first of all, to the team of Serendipity, congratulations to see this day. And Mr. Munjal, your vision and guidance, this wouldn't have really come. So thank you for partnering with us and having us engaged. Brian, I think a key element in creating entrepreneurship is innovation. And one of the key things when we were discussing Confluence at our end was that this really is a platform where innovation, imagination, trying to think of something different, which is called differentiators in our language when we talk about investments. I think that to us really sort of rang a bell. Because what arts, creativity in any field, even in culinary arts, I think there is a lot of things which you innovate all the time. You're trying to do different things. And I think what Confluence is trying to do is bring the genetics of entrepreneurship, which is innovation, differentiators, into a sphere of arts, creativity on the one hand. The flip side of it is as we engage as entrepreneurs on the creative side, I think today we are bringing creativity or imagination into the science part of it. And therefore we have very different kind of even technology applications that we are seeing as entrepreneurs bring propositions to us. So I think that is where we are really seeing confluence of these different ideas. And therefore Confluence and Ideathon sort of rang a bell at both TIE and IEN for us. That was one part. The second piece is when we talk to entrepreneurs, we do get people who come up with ideas on arts. They come up with ideas on saying, I'm trying to put this whole proposition together to bring people from different tribal arts together, for people with different foods from the country around India and beyond. So there was never a place where we could bring them together and actually help mentor them, guide them, help them to see the light of day in a way that it actually scales. To us, I think Confluence now provides a kind of a harbor of bringing these entrepreneurs with these thoughts together and actually helping them go to the next level, not only in their own ventures or in their own businesses, but also to get them to be enabled by what I would say technology, because Confluence and Serendipity itself brings both technology and I think the next of generation technology into the arts form. So for us, I think we saw this as a confluence of ideas, innovation and imagination. We saw entrepreneurship where people bring these things together and finally harbor them and scale them with Serendipity. So that is what really excited us. And I think that is also the genesis of our the partnership that we are trying to sort of forge here, and take this whole piece, open up a new entrepreneurship, how should I say, focus in arts, culture, some of our very traditional, ancient forms of art, and give them a kind of a platform where they can scale and take it to the next level.
Sure. Thanks, Padmaja. I'll stay with those words that you use, those themes that you used of creativity, innovation, imagination, right? And I'll take those themes to Ms. Shaw and ask you a very hypothetical question. Of course, it doesn't have to be hypothetical. I hope it doesn't stay hypothetical. But if you had to be involved or even build a platform to bring artists and scientists together to encourage collaboration and innovation, how excited would you be about it, and how would you go about it, Ms. Shaw?
So, Brian, I think you just heard all of us talk about the fact that this is an emancipated platform, as Vinita very rightly put it. And experimentation and creativity really is all about that. And as an entrepreneur, it is about, taking risks, experimenting with bold ideas, pushing yourself to differentiate, all the things that you heard Padmaja say. And I just think that creating a space to ideate is very, very important for any kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem to be seeded or to flourish. I also know that in my own experience of being involved with what I just mentioned earlier on, the Science Gallery Bengaluru, it is the same concept. How do you get young minds to come in and experiment with scientific ideas, to learn more about science, a curiosity-driven experimentation, which is what arts also provides. And bringing the arts and sciences together is really one of the most inspiring, creative experiences one can have. At least I know as a scientist that when you can get inspired by that confluence, it is very, very everlasting. So, when you think about just environmental sustainability, it combines the best of both. What does it take to appreciate the beauty of the planet, the cultural heritage that we have, the artistic heritage that we have, and to combine it with the sciences that can preserve them and enhance them is what I really look into. And that's where the art and science confluence comes into play. And I think this is where I think the Confluence Ideathon 2021 initiative is to me a very, very inspiring initiative.
Beautiful. Thanks, Shaw. I'll probably try to, in my question to Ms. Bali, address the confluence between, say, culture and creativity with commerce, right? So how do you go about building maybe a cultural center, with a robust business model and go about creating revenue streams around it, right? I mean, how that commercial aspect of it, how important is it, and how do you actually exploit it?
Brian, I think how you would commercialize it, it's not about exploiting anything.
Yeah,
I think it is really about.
I'll use the corporate word of leverage. Yeah.
Yes. I was just being facetious with you as well. Yes, but I think the starting point is very important. Are we doing this to satisfy a commercial purpose, or are we creating such a fine product that the commerce angle will just be the result of what we do?
Right.
In other words, even in the business world, when you start thinking about a new product or a new solution, the most important thing is there are two words we use most often. One is, what is the relevance? And if it is relevant, how will it be differentiated? Right. So I think Sunil mentioned, the relevance of art is something that if we make art of great quality and excellence accessible to more people, I think more and more people will begin to appreciate the value of art. So let me use a very specific example. When you go to Vienna, every little school kid is introduced to the opera when you are, 4 years old or 5 years old. And you grow up with an appreciation for the opera. Now, it's not that everybody in Vienna ends up becoming, a great opera aficionado, but I think that early exposure is very, very important and very critical. So I think creating the relevance of the arts and what arts can do for you, and in many ways, we've talked about the year that has just gone by. I think in 2020, from around the world, artists and art shared most generously the best of the best that they have created. And they made it available to all of us free of cost. Now, no great art can flourish without great artists being taken care of. So the business model that I would think about is, an amalgamation, a harmonization, a confluence, a coming together of the best artists to actually create, wonderment amongst people. We don't know what we don't know. So if I've never seen excellence in art, I don't know what excellence in art means. Whereas if I were to use sports as a metaphor, there is a lot of money in sports. Of course, it's exciting. It does a whole host of other things. But art is no less exciting. It's just that we haven't given it the significance, the importance, the scale that we perhaps have given to Bollywood or to, I wouldn't even say sports. I would only say cricket. So I think the important thing is the business model will follow once the product is of excellence. And to create an excellent product, you need a space that fosters that creativity, that brings people together. And I have a deep conviction that, some of our very creative artists, some of our very talented young people, when they come together, they can create an impact which is truly remarkable. And I'm sure most of us can recall some experiences where we've been so profoundly touched by the experience of art. And performing art is so experiential that, just for that, I think people will be willing to participate. Let me use one last example in Bangalore. There is a wonderful theater called Rangashankara. It's a theater of about, 300 people. They do, performances every day of the week except Monday, and have been doing this for decades, and it is full. So I go back and say, when you are actually creating experiences that people really can connect with, that are relevant and differentiated, it is the pull factor. It is never the push factor.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bali. The product first and the business model will follow. Right. So let me go back to Mr. Munjal and talk about the product. Mr. Munjal, what will the auditorium of the future look like with the use of technology and materials, keeping in mind today's environmental realities?
So there are two aspects to this. One is the functional aspect, that in order to be efficient, and this goes back to the point you made, you do not have to become a rip-off commercial venture. But if you do things right, you can create a sustainable business model. For that, some things for certain will need to be charged, but you can create a number of things where access is available at no cost to a large section of the population. And we hope and plan to do exactly this. So to make it very, very accessible is one of the initiatives, by the way. And I mean accessible not only in terms of cost, but also physically accessible. So we propose wheelchair access to every part of the live museum. We also propose special initiatives for those with disabilities, hearing disabilities, speaking disabilities, for those who are visually impaired. So there are a series of initiatives planned for all of them, including people with learning disabilities. So therefore, the use of physical design, concepts which take care of these, as also technology, overlaid by technology, are an essential component to coming to your question of the auditorium. it should be a place which can be used one day for an opera and for the next day for a simple school performance, and the very next day after that for something which makes it like a skating rink, for example. So flexibility is an essential requirement that we're trying to build into all aspects of the live museum. So you have seats which can move, you have acoustics which can be tailored to different events, you can have lighting which will change for depending on what the use is at that point in time, whether you're doing a rehearsal for a play or a completely different performance. So it is essential that flexibility is built in, but for each use, it must be best in class at the time that you're using it. Both are equally important.
Okay.
Mr. Carvalho, I'm just going to quickly step in. We're a little over time, and we do have members of the media present as well who have a few questions. So
Okay.
I was wondering if we could sort of segue into incorporating some of the questions.
Sure.
That
Let's move on to the, yeah, sure.
So we have Mr. Madan Mohan from Your Story who's present. Mr. Mohan, if you'd like to turn on your video and ask your question. For the interest of time, I just request everybody to clearly address their question to a panelist, as Mr. Carvalho had done, and to ensure that the question itself is also brief. Thank you.
Yeah, my video seems to be disabled, but here it is, yes. My question for Sunil and the team is, I've enjoyed the Serendipity Arts Festival many times. I'm wondering if you have plans also to launch something like a Delhi Biennale, somewhat like the Kochi Biennale, and put India and Delhi NCR also on the cultural map. These are very big influential events. It'll be fantastic to see something coming to India again.
So I think in many ways, the Serendipity Arts Festival is in some sense a very global festival. And we have visitors now from around the world who have put this on their calendar. As I mentioned briefly earlier, we have visitors coming from over 30 countries now on a regular basis, except of course last December. So it already is. In fact, it has a little bit more activity because this is annualized. It's not every 2 years as most biennales are. This is an annual event and has the same scale. We believe it has a bigger impact because its scope is much wider and deeper, since it brings in new artists, young artists, as also very well established artists, both from within India and globally. And we would like to continue to build on this experience that we've had.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a question from Ms. Georgina Maddox, I believe is addressed to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Georgina, if you'd like to turn on your video.
You're mute.
Georgina, you're on mute. You'd have to unmute. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question and for all the wonderful work that Serendipity Arts has been doing. My question is about government involvement and how to get the government involved, because the private players have put in so much, but we also, there is a huge untapped resource in terms of funding, in terms of support that the central government can give the arts, and it's been playing back and forth, and we've had a lot of conversations with organizations like Lalit Kala, and we want more involvement. So how do we sort of begin to then negotiate that since Serendipity has done so well in Goa on a central level, like in a Delhi level? My question is that, and to make the arts as important as science, like you said so beautifully, you gave that metaphor.
So Georgina, I'd really like to say that what we need to do is to collaborate. So I don't think it's all about always funding and getting financial support from the government. I think it's very important to have a very vibrant collaboration with whatever the government is trying to do in the arts and culture. And I think that is what would then lead to a better kind of connect and a greater reach for people across the country. So I think let's start with collaboration. I don't think it should start with a funding request. I mean, Sunil can add to this, but this is what I feel.
And I completely agree with what you're saying, Kiran. It has to be, the patron cannot only be the government, as they have been actually for the first 5 decades of this independent India. It is absolutely critical that private institutions, private companies, private individuals, philanthropists, and foundations get equally, if not more, engaged than the government. But the government needs to be a facilitator for this. That is for certain. They're making rules, regulations simpler and easier for the arts and for culture, which, by the way, have not been the greatest so far.
And maybe I'll just add to what you're saying, Sunil and Georgina. I think it's extremely important for every citizen to really get engaged, because for far too long, we've actually just basically been beholden to the government to do everything and anything for us. And I think it's time that now that we have philanthropic capital available and people who are interested to really engage, I think every one of us can get involved in whatever small or big way we choose to do.
Thank you. We also have a question for Ms. Bali. I believe we have Shivani with us. Shivani, if you'd like to turn on your video and raise the question. I don't think we've been able to reach Shivani. If there are any other members who have questions, you'll see a small reaction button at the bottom of your panel. You can click on that to raise your hand or go ahead and post the question. We'll wait for about a couple of seconds. Okay, we have Shivani's question coming in. Yes, sure,
Okay,
Mr.
if it's coming in, it's fine. Otherwise, I said I can make a couple of comments if you like. But go ahead, let her ask her question.
So she's posed this question for Ms. Bali. Traditional arts comes from rural areas. What kind of plans should be there? There are quite a lot of things accessible in urban areas, but not so in rural. How do we resolve this challenge?
Art comes from everywhere. And I'm not sure what we mean when we say traditional arts comes from rural areas. There is pervasive creativity. You go anywhere in India and you can see that creativity. So I think arts, we've got a very rich tradition of folk arts. Look at the Manganyars of Rajasthan and the Kudiyatams from Kerala and so on and so forth. So we've got a very, as I think was said earlier, we are fortunate in our country to have a very rich cultural tradition of the arts that comes from everywhere, whether it is classical arts or folk art, whether it is music or whether it is dance, etc. So I think we're really talking about, when Sunil talked about accessibility, one of the things that I think that last year has proven in great measure is it almost doesn't matter where you are. People are watching things and hearing things and downloading, on their mobile phones, irrespective of where they are. And this really reminds me of a story. Years ago, I was on a market visit in some really back of the boondocks, village in Maharashtra. And there was this pan seller, and he was listening to a beautiful rendition of Bhimsen Joshi ji. And, so I asked him, he knew more about Bhimsen Joshi, and he told me more about Bhimsen Joshi than, frankly, I'd heard from anybody else. So I think that is the magnetic quality of art. And we can experience it anywhere and we can see it anywhere.
Thank you, Ms. Bali. We have a final question from Ms. Ritika Kocher, who's also here with us. Ritika, if you'd like to turn on your video. Thank you.
Sorry, you seem to have disabled my video, so I don't know if I'm appearing or disappearing.
We can see you and hear you. Perfect. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Mr. Munjal, please. Sure. My question is, how is this center going to be different from the Sanskriti Center, which has been set up by Mr. O.P. Jain, which is also, I think, in about the same area of Delhi?
So, Mr. Jain has a wonderful center that he set up which is focused on crafts. The difference here is that this is focused on all kinds of arts, including performing arts, culinary arts, performance arts as distinct from performing arts, and visual arts. So first, it will have all of them operating at the same place. And it will also have regular residencies being run. It will have research initiatives going on. We turned out 50 research reports last year on arts and culture, which I'm told is probably one of the most prolific in the world. And these are quality reports. This is not just research, but high quality research. And we will also have initiatives of all of these ongoing through the year. So like the festival that we do once a year right now in Goa, in essence, you'll be able to visit the festival any time of the year at this center. So all of the art forms will be operating all the time. So what we are doing right now is we are gathering ideas from India and from around the world to see what is the most desirable system, process, design, material to put in to create an institution which will stand the test of time, and hopefully it's generational. It's not being done for, for a year or 2 or 5 years, or as a business, as the question was being asked. This is hopefully a long-term heritage that all of us will leave behind for future generations, which is why I mentioned the words earlier. We are trying to blend the ancient and the modern, the old and the new, in a manner which is seamless. So it will be design will be hopefully based on the architectural, cultural heritage that we have, but also the most contemporary design initiatives in the world. So on the one hand, we have old designs we're looking at. We also have companies like Microsoft and Google and Schneider coming and making presentations to us on how the most contemporary technologies can help design, set up and operate a building, and the exposure and experience of individuals with the building. So which is why we believe this will have many more aspects. It's not competing with others, by the way. We hope others will come and learn and also take ideas back from here. We're not one against the other. We are all complementing each other in the initiatives, because there's such wonderful initiatives right now which are already ongoing, but we don't have enough as a nation of our size and scale.
I agree entirely, and congratulations. I think this is a fantastic idea. But how big is this going to be? I mean, what's the scope? How big? Do we have any sizes?
I'll also intervene quickly to say that
you'll have to wait for a little bit, but it is big. It is quite large.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ritika. I'll take this opportunity now to thank each and every member of the panel for taking out the time today to join us. It has been such an invigorating discussion. Ms. Mazumdar Shah, what you mentioned about methodologies in science and creative arts. Ms. Bali, your use of the term boundaryless has really resonated with the kind of work we do every day. And Ms. Ruparel, I'm going to look up the idea of the differentiator right after. I've been taking many notes. Thank you so much for joining. Also, a note of gratitude to Mr. Carvalho for leading the discussion with such pertinent and thoughtful questions. Mr. Munjal, as always, for joining us and for conceptualizing this. Before we close for the day, we have a very interesting segment planned next, where we kind of get into the details of what it means to undertake an endeavor such as Confluence Ideathon. I'm very pleased to be introducing to you the domains and some of the mentors who will be nurturing the participants of Confluence Ideathon. A core aspect of Confluence is connecting imagination with expertise and nurturing ideas through mentorship. Across the 5 domains, which address various facets of what a cultural center of the future demands, applicants will be mentored by industry leaders, thinkers, and pioneers who've changed the landscape of their respective fields. It is with immense pride that I introduce the domains of Confluence Ideathon and invite a few of our members to share their vision. Our first domain is arts into social behavior. In what ways can the design and programming of a center create positive behavioral changes in society? Which are the events and activities that could generate curiosity among the young to explore the arts and culture more deeply? Social behavior, or how we relate to the world around us, is a key aspect of cultural engagement. Can we play a short film on arts into social behavior, please? I'm pleased to invite Mr. Arvind Singhal, one of the members in the domain of social behavior, to say a few words. Mr. Singhal is the founder and chairman of Technopack Advisors. Having started its operation in January 1992, Technopack is one of India's leading management consulting firms focusing on 4 key sectors that include consumer products and retail, textiles and apparel, packaged food, food services and agriculture, and education and skills development. He has a Bachelor of Engineering degree from IIT Roorkee, India, that has also recognized him as a distinguished alumnus, and an MBA from UCLA, USA. Over to you, Mr. Singhal.
Thank you very much, Arushi. Thank you very much, Mr. Munjal and everybody else. It's indeed an honor and privilege to be involved in something so unusual for me. Usually I speak or interact in the context of business, but this is something which was very, very unique. And I think it's not a day too late to see an initiative like this. The way I see in the context of arts and the impact in social behavior, if I were to look into the last 200 years of our existence as a nation, most of the time has been fraught by surviving, trying to just preserve our identity of a nation which was otherwise 5, 6, 8,000 years old. Even after our independence for the last 70 years, it has largely been a struggle to make our own identity felt, to exist, and to grow in some way, but the dimensions were largely limited to survival. When we look into the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of our journey as a nation, as a society, we need to evolve much more than looking at only the aspect of either financial survival or maybe a political survival. I think as a society, we have experienced very rich forms of an existence, and there's no reason why we can't do so. Today's young people in particular, I find that many of them are not having a purpose in life. They're very angry. They don't know why they're angry, but they seem to be angry. They seem to react to everything. To me, art can provide to some a way to insulate and isolate. You don't have to look into the noise which is around us from morning to evening, which otherwise in the absence of a purpose, you have no choice but to be a part of that. Insulate means introspect and reflect. Collaborate. Arts is about collaboration in many forms, and share. Like Vinita also talked about a short while ago, an artist does not do something for his own self or herself. It's about sharing with the people and gets a joy when people sort of get a joy in seeing what is there. So to me, the social behavioral aspect of the arts, the importance of that, changing the behavior of a society would make it a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more pleasant, a little bit more laughing, in some ways smiling, happier society. This is what I hope that we can focus through at least this particular part of the 5 vision documents, that how do we make our society a more happy society, if I can just use one word, happy. And art can do that in many ways. Marishi?
Thank you so much. Thank you for these enlightening words, Mr. Singhal. I think this idea of finding joy resonates even with the discussion that we'd had earlier. I'm now very pleased to talk about the next domain, which is arts into business. The future of arts as a model of sustainable and equitable livelihood requires new approaches to developing relationships, non-vertical and non-hierarchical models of responsibility, and building the strength of communities. Business is central to the growth, upliftment, and expansion of arts beyond confines. Can we have a short film on arts into business, please? Thank you. I'm now very pleased to invite Mr. Navyug Monath, one of the mentors in the domain of business, to say a few words. Mr. Monath is founder of QAI and CEO of QAI Global, founder of QGlue, and a director in several companies and not-for-profit foundations. Recently, Mr. Monath has founded QGlue, accelerate innovation through the systematic use of methods, tools, and enterprise-wide design-led practices. Navyug did his BTech from IIT Delhi and is a recipient of Outstanding Contribution to National Development from the IIT Delhi Alumni Association. We're so pleased to have you with us. Over to you, Mr. Munjal.
Thank you, Arushi, and good afternoon, all. Firstly, congratulations to the Hero Enterprise and the Serendipity Arts Foundation for this unique and truly exciting initiative. I am delighted and, of course, honored to participate and engage with you and with the applicants that we're seeking and soliciting. Innovation is always challenging, and innovation and innovating a museum or a cultural center's business model, I think, is going to be more so. We heard Mr. Munjal talk about sustainability, excellence, access, flexibility. Padmaja spoke about scale and bringing in entrepreneurship. Vinita about relevance and differentiation, and Kiran about getting citizens engaged. So we've got this, direction and inspiration from all of you. Now rubber hits the road. How are we going to translate this into reality in disruptive and exciting and innovative ways? And so I'm delighted, and I think the arts times business is a very important pillar, and I'm glad you people have got that in the Ideathon, because I think business can inform the arts. And in the process, I'm really hoping that, and it will, I'm sure, happen, that arts will inform business. So what is going to be the endeavor as we go on and engage with the applicants is really try and understand in greater detail what a business model is, and how we translate that in the context of a arts and cultural construct that we have here. And at a very, very elementary or a very simplistic level, as one management guru, whose name I don't recall, said, a business model is really the story of how an organization functions. And if you peel the layers of the onion, this is going to be extremely complex. If you're going to create sustainability and excellence and getting these key drivers to fit in with each other and create the outcomes that we all talked about. So I am really excited and to explore with the applicants as a mentor on who the stakeholders are, and looking outside the norm or the set that we always talk about. Perhaps there are other stakeholders out there that we've not engaged with. What do these stakeholders / consumers value? Perhaps they value stuff that we have not we assumed, and it would be great to go and in a very empathetic way to understand once again what our stakeholders / consumers value. This pillar is also going to explore the third element, which is how are we going to then deliver value to all the stakeholders? And lastly, it would be very interesting, and the fourth item that I hope to engage with all the applicants with, which I think is very important, is how do we deliver all this in a cost-effective and sustainable manner, because that will create scale. And so a business model is really today, and often a business model is so intermeshed with the product itself, and helps create the scale and the resurgence. So once again, I mean, this is truly exciting. I'm hoping that the tenets of business thinking will inform this journey forward, and I'm looking forward to taking back from the arts world tenets that we can take back to the business world, and it's truly going to be a confluence and a cross-pollination. So thank you, Mr. Munjal, and I'm really excited. and to engage and to participate in my own humble way for this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mernad. That captures the spirit of what we hope to do through the Confluence perfectly. I mean, learning as a continuous, open process of dialogue and conversation and exchange has always informed our approach to arts, and we look forward to seeing how we can learn from business. The next domain for Confluence Ideathon is arts into environment and sustainability, creating a cultural space not simply of the future, but for the future, requires careful attention to practices that minimize emissions, waste, and long-term harm to the environment. The question of sustainable and green building practices also raises questions of how we produce, perform, and consume culture. Attention to environment and sustainability is a cornerstone of a vibrant cultural center. If we could have a short film on this, please. Thank you. I'm very pleased to invite Ms. Sujata Kohli, one of the mentors in the domain of environment and sustainability, to say a few words. Ms. Kohli is a leading landscape architect with a master's in landscape architecture from SPA and diploma in landscape conservation from Florence, Italy. She's worked on projects based in India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Africa. She's been part of the international group to have worked with World Bank projects for infrastructure works in Bhutan. She's visiting faculty member to SPA New Delhi and currently serving as the president of Indian Society of Landscape Architects. We're so pleased to have you with us. Over to you, Ms. Kohli.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to Mr. Munjal and his team for such a great vision. It's very nice to see when corporates get into something like this, which is not only now from culture, art, you're talking about sustainability, which I think is really the key word today. And we all know that when you're talking about sustainable growth, we're talking about environmental sustainability, because these two things are very integral to actually equitable economic growth also, you know. So at one of the talks was, how do we make it economically sustainable? So once we do the first two things, the third will automatically come. You know, and talking about this physical space of creating a live museum for art and culture, I remember as a student when I was doing my master's in landscape architecture, I was doing Banaras Ghats, and I also visited different places where the performing arts and creativity was at its peak. And one example I remember still stays with me was Shantiniketan. You know, I mean, that's a space where I learned, I saw how beautifully the people who are creative, whether it was in the field of artists or performing arts or as students, you know, of those fields, they were interacting with the environment and learning actually from there, you know. So all the learnings, we all know the learnings come from nature. And the moment we start thinking about creating a physical space today, I think for years we've forgotten about finding the natural solutions. And we need to do actually ecological planning, where ecology, environmental infrastructure, along with the social sustainability, you know, these things need to be people-centric. As Mr. Munjal is saying, it will be accessible to everybody, you know. That's one of the key things, you know, in creating this kind of a center. So I feel also we need to look at solutions which are nature-based solutions, because that's the key demand today, because we don't have a planet B. So anything which is to do with spaces which can become urban commons, not only for our choking cities, but also help in whether it's curtailing or the saviors for air pollution, water pollution, you know, and creating our cities where even the marginalized people of the society can kind of take a breather in these spaces. So I think the whole approach to design needs to, in some ways, we need to unlearn a lot of things. We using this term called today rewilding, you know, in spaces like places of ridge and all, where we need to go back to actually creating open spaces with the kind of a flora and which creates actually habitats for other animals and other creatures. It's not only us on the planet. So it has to do with creating the physical spaces which are environmentally sustainable. So once they are environmentally sustainable, then the growth, sustainable growth will automatically come, And today, I think instead of fully putting these gizmos, of course, the tech part is important for creating actually sucking the carbon dioxides, rather than just putting small, simple thing as trees, which actually will be absorbing all your, bad air and carbon dioxide and other gases. So these are the things, some of these things we need to go back to. So I think with this, we need to create some kind of a example how going back to our traditional knowledge, of course, along with the technology partners, how we can make them better, create a space which is environmentally sustainable. So that is, I think, what we really need to look at. And I'm very happy to participate in my small ways, to mentor the participants who are going to be, bringing all these wonderful ideas. So that's it. And, I'm sure we'll come up with something which everybody will not only participate, can take something back from.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kohli. And it's wonderful that you mentioned technology, because that's actually the next domain that we'll be discussing. Arts into technology, both are forces of change that reshape and define the world we live in. We're now asking if you can take creativity and use the power of emerging technologies to make the arts more accessible and inclusive, and as Ms. Kohli mentioned, sustainable. Can new age technology solutions revolutionize the consumption of art? Can technologies be applied to revitalize user experience of a museum or a cultural space? Let's watch a short film on arts and technology. Thank you. I'm pleased to invite now Mr. Harshit Desai, one of the mentors in the domain of technology, to say a few words. Mr. Desai is a user experience evangelist and new media enthusiast whose mission is to enhance the user experience of digital devices and make users happy. He has led large-scale disruptive projects for companies like Yahoo and eBay. His international award-winning work has been in banking and financial services, where he's worked with Citibank, HSBC, Standard Chartered, Merrill Lynch, to name a few. He's an alumnus of Stanford Graduate School of Business and was the youngest entrant into customer-focused innovation program. Over to you, Mr. Desai.
Thanks, Arushi. And firstly, congratulations, Mr. Munjal, and to all the patrons for having such a fantastic initiative. I'm quite excited looking at the possibilities which this can throw open. Just to talk about, and Navyu kind of very rightly summarized quite a lot of keywords which all of you talked about. I think if I look at the entire canvas which we can paint, looking at technology being the main fabric, I think the possibilities are going to be enormous. Unfortunately, it took a pandemic for us to have technology as a leveler and for all of us to embark on technology. We have seen how we could actually use the technology and in ways which we never thought of earlier, and how different stratas of society between age groups, how technology has been onboarded in their lives, so to say. I would like to actually welcome all the applicants to challenge their thinking of looking at application of technology in ways we have never thought of. I mean, if we look at emerging technologies and fabrics, wearable is one output, right? There are so many such permutations, combinations possible. And if I think from what Sujata talked about in terms of environment, and we talked, if we look at new age artificial intelligence, the possibilities are enormous. So even if we start, so like we have this art into technology, if we can start going one level deeper and start doing the same mashup of fabric and technology, or fabric and sub activity within a technology, which could be artificial intelligence, it could be blockchain, imagine the kind of possibilities we can be having. And that's what I think I'm looking forward to. When I thought of enrolling myself as a mentor, I would definitely be more than humbled to kind of share my inputs. And I'm sure with so many young entrepreneurs, new ideators submitting their ideas, it is going to be more enriching and learning experience for me rather than the applicant. So that's what I would look forward to. And I'm hoping that the entire team of Serendipity is able to take this to the next level from all what it has gained in last 5 years. So congratulations to you guys as well once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Desai. We're also looking forward to learning through this process. And in fact, we have, over the course of researching these domains and in countless conversations with our mentors and juries. Now, I would like to introduce our final domain within Confluence Ideathon, which is arts into design. Design is everything: the way we move, how we work and relax, interact and isolate. Design determines bodies, assemblies, dispersions. Design shapes our field of vision and range of sound. Design has to straddle both functionality and inspiration, leaving an imprint in the minds of those who interact with it, while also ensuring concomitance with sustainability and responsible energy use. Can we have a short film on arts and design now, please? Thank you. So that's largely the structure of Confluence Ideathon. As Mr. Desai mentioned, all of these various fields bleed into and inform and influence each other. The word is confluence that everyone has sort of circled back to, and we look forward over the course of the next month to see many confluences emerge from these interactions. Before we conclude the evening, I would like to throw the floor open for any pending questions from members of the media who are present and have joined us today. If anyone has a question, you could please turn on your video.
Yeah, I have a question. Since this is going to be a live living music, will there be a maker space also at this place for people to come and make and create things?
Mr. Rao, you could also,
Yes, there will be.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And any other ideas are also welcome, since we are in the process and the stage of designing it right now. As I said earlier, we have some of the finest minds in the world right now working on the design and the concept. So we are very happy to get any suggestions and ideas, and hopefully we will get many through the Confluence Ideathon, which was the very purpose of opening this to, we hope, thousands and thousands of bright minds.
The floor is still open in case there are any questions. I think we'll hold on for a few seconds if there are no questions, and if any other questions come up to you later, you can always reach out to the team and we'd ensure the questions reach the person intended.
Okay, so.
Right. So I think, so sorry, Mr. Munjal, please go ahead.
No, good. I said we can say thank you now to everyone.
Yes. Absolutely.
Been an interesting, fun session.
I'd like to thank all our esteemed mentors, patrons, media representatives, and collaborators for joining us today. It has been an afternoon of sharing insights, learnings, and observations gleaned from years of experience and expertise. And what's really struck me is the energy and excitement in the room. Thank you for taking out the time to contribute to this creation of an open, inquisitive, and innovative platform for thinking of the arts. I'd also like to thank the team behind the screen for their seamless tech support. It's not really a virtual event without a few glitches, but this one ran fairly smooth, so thank you. I'd also like to conclude by thanking the partners for Confluence Ideathon, an initiative by Hero Enterprise, powered by Indian Angel Network and TIE Delhi NCR. Please note the application window opens in 2 days on 13 January. We look forward to interacting with minds from across the globe. Please visit www.confluenceideathon.com for further information or reach out to us. Thank you for joining. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you and all the best. Thank you.